Hi there, welcome back to the channel and to the 9th and final video in the SABA Meersburg 100 restoration. If I look like a zombie, it's because I feel like one. I got COVID at the moment, but I really wanted to finish this series because I've been dying to get this thing set up and working, and I have done, as you can see, and the result is pretty amazing. I love the look. It's sort of classic, but it was at the stage when things were starting to get a bit more square, and they were heading sort of towards modernizing, not as much as BRAUN did with the ATELIER series, but it certainly was starting to get more squarish, but with no compromise on quality. This thing is amazing, and the sound is incredible, and I just want you to look at it, enjoy it. And what I'll be doing here is I had a few little things to do. I had to do the supply correction, both for the AC supply. This thing's only got a 220 volts input. I needed to bring it down because my supply is about 235, 240. And also after that, I replaced the selenium rectifier. And there I wondered whether I needed to drop the B+. As it turns out, it was a lot easier than I thought. But anyway, if you enjoy this sort of thing, stick around, enjoy the video. We're coming to the end of our project, and there are a few little housekeeping things to be done here. One of them is the power supply. Now, if you recall, this highest setting I've got here is 220 volts. My voltage here is 230 something. It can go as high as 240 theoretically. So this means that my voltage on the heaters is going to be too high. In fact, the entire supply is too high, but we'll get to the B+ in a minute. First of all, I need to look at the heaters. And what I've done here is I've taken the wire coming in, I've removed the connection straight into the transformer, and I've made these two accessible so that I can put a break in it because I want to add a resistor. Because the first thing I need to do is bring this 240 volts down to the right voltage, which should be 220, to give me 6.3 volts over there, or close enough. So let me do that. I've got the break in the one line here. I don't even know if it's neutral or live because this is not polarized. We don't use polarized plugs here. It's a little precarious, so you've got to be careful. But what I've done at the moment is I've taken these two crock clips, and as they are at the moment, they're actually just shorted. So we've got no break. I've got the multimeter probe on there. And before I do a test for how much resistance we need to bring this down to 220 and to bring that down to 6.3 or to get 6.3 volts heaters, I'm going to switch it on as it is. Now I've got to be quite careful because I don't have a dim bulb or anything like that to save me if something goes wrong. So here goes directly to the mains. And our mains is 236. And our heater supply is 6.7, which 6.8, which is a little bit high. So I need to bring this down, and I'm not even sure quite how much. I'm actually going to go try for 220 and 6.3. And to do that, I'm going to add a resistor in the line by simply breaking that connection and putting the resistor in line. Now what I've got here is a 56 ohm resistor. It's, I believe, a 10 watt resistor, so it should be okay. And well, actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do something so stupid. I'm going to switch it off. Switch it off, and now I can, let's see which one goes to where. I've now got a 56 ohm resistor, and let's see what the meters tell us, or what they will tell us when I switch it on. Let's hit it. 222, 223. Okay, it's starting to draw some current. And that's pretty close. Pretty close. 219, 6.2. That is beautiful. Now, I think I'm actually going to, let's let it settle for a while. 56 ohms seems to be a pretty good resistor to use here, and it seems to be stabilizing quite well. So I'm going to use this 56 ohms. I had actually prepared 200 ohms resistors in parallel to give me 50 ohms, but I think that will raise the voltage a little bit too much. This is perfect. 6.2 is perfect. So if this thing goes up to 238 or something, that'll go up to 6.3, maximum 6.4. I'm happy. This is right. This is spot on. Brilliant. Now I've just got to figure a way of putting that resistor on here somewhere, keeping it safe, making the wiring all safe, and also making sure that that resistor is touching the chassis so it dissipates some heat, because I'm not sure how hot it is, but let's have a look. These things do get pretty hot. Make sure I don't touch it. That is nearly 100 degrees C. That'll boil water. Which is not a problem. It's not a problem. These resistors are made to get quite hot. It's a 10 watt resistor. What I'm actually getting on there is, let's call it, what was that, 35? So 17, 18 volts at 240 milliamps, if I recall correctly. So I'm getting 4.5 watts. 4.5 watts using a 10 watt resistor. It should be perfectly fine, as long as I connect it well onto the chassis so that it dissipates some heat through the actual chassis. So let me get that done, because what we need to do next is look at the selenium rectifier and see what the B plus is, because I may have to replace that with silicon diodes and the dropping resistor again to get the right B plus. All right, folks, as if by magic, it is done. That resistor is in place. I have the resistor clamped with a piece of aluminium here. There was actually a convenient hole there. I put a nut on the other side. I did not want to drill any more holes on here, but the resistor is now clamped in here. This fortunately has both wires coming out the top, so I don't have to, pass wires through the bottom. That goes in there and makes that connection from the neutral or the live, whichever it is, through the resistor. And it fits quite neatly there. It's out of the way, and it's actually quite easily reversible, if that's what someone wants to do. But let me show you what results we're getting here, because now I took the meter and I connected it to the B plus coming out of the selenium rectifier between the ground and the B plus. And what have we got? Well, we've still got our 6.2 heater voltage there, but our B plus is 255. I've got it on FM, and it's supposed to be 290 on FM, 291 on medium wave. So our selenium rectifier's got to go. And with the amount of voltage this thing's actually dropping, I'm actually hoping that I won't need to put any resistors in here. I'm going to replace this with my little kit, which is a little board that I had made that fits exactly into the size of this kind of selenium rectifier. It's replaced with 4 1N4007 diodes, and then we'll measure it and see what we've got. All right, so here we are. I've removed the selenium rectifier, and the replacement with the 4 diodes has been put in there. It fits exactly into the same holes. There are a couple of plastic or poly whatever spaces, so this doesn't short against the case. It actually looks pretty neat. And what you can see here is that the resistors, there are no resistors here. This is set up so that you can have up to 3 resistors in parallel to give you the voltage drop you need. But we don't know if we need a voltage drop yet. We need 290 volts B plus. So I'm going to connect the meter and see what we get. At the moment, remember, there's no voltage drop, no resistive dropper. So what have we got here? We need 290 volts. And will you look at that? That is pretty close. Now, if I go down to medium wave, what does it say? On medium wave, it's supposed to be 291. So it goes up a couple of volts. Ah, this is perfect. This is perfect. I'm leaving it exactly like this. No resistive drop on there. I could put in 10 ohms or something, but it really does not need it. This mains will fluctuate a little bit anyway, so, a few volts will make absolutely no difference, and it means we have one less element there that's creating heat. That is going to get hot enough. It's only been going for a little while, but let's see what we've got. Not bad at all. 40 degrees, 46, 57, 58, 64. Okay, 66 degrees. That is actually fairly low for something like this. So that means that our supply issues are done. And it also means that this thing is ready to come out of my multi-purpose bracket and into the cabinet, which I have finished and which I'll now show you in detail. And then at the end of that, we'll do a full test of all the bands and all the functions. Okay, brilliant. Well, folks, here we have the cabinet. And this is a story about a dream that turned into an absolute bloody nightmare, and it sort of ended up as a dream after all. This cabinet was a lot more challenging than I initially anticipated, because everything that could go wrong, well, almost everything that could go wrong did go wrong. But now I finally got the result that I was hoping for. Well, almost. There are a few things that could be better, but let me give you a close-up and tell you a little bit about what happened here. I wanted to remove that sort of acrylic type coating. I had to go down to the wood. There were quite a few slightly thick dings on here than I liked. And I really wanted to get this thing to the point where it became a permanent fixture in somewhere in my house, wherever there's space. And getting that lacquer off was not easy. And then I remembered Tipton. Bring on Tipton. I remember David Tipton did one where he actually scraped the lacquer off with some heat. So I went and looked up his video again. And lo and behold, there it was. It was a Phillips, I believe he did, where the acrylic, he tried to get it off with paint stripper. He tried to get it off with sandpaper, and it just wouldn't budge. So he ended up with using a heat gun of sorts, and it scrapes off. And this thing is amazing. It actually comes off very, very well. And you can get this thing right down to the wood. Obviously, before that, you remove everything you can. All the frills and the grills and everything else come off, and then you're left with the cabinet just by itself. And once you've got that down to the bare wood, and then it's just a matter of trying again. And this one did take a lot of trying again. I sanded it all down with various grits of sandpaper, getting it nice and smooth. And then I started putting some color on. And I got a few coats of that till I got it right. And then I started putting lacquer on. And that's where things went a bit iffy. I just couldn't get this thing right. I put on layer, and every time I sanded it down, I'd go through the lacquer. I probably wasn't leaving this long enough to dry properly, because lacquer does need quite a lot of time to dry before you can really sand it down. We had a very, very humid spell here. I mean, really humid in Madeira. And I think that didn't help either. So this thing went with layers and more layers and more layers to the point where I got sick of it. And finally, I got the result I wanted. I wanted a matte finish. I did not want a gloss, but I wanted it to look as original as possible. Bit of a compromise here on the gloss side, but other than that, I think I've got that. And then the cabinet needed a few little things which were a lot easier to do, like polishing all the brass on there, gluing it back. The front grille on the bottom there needed to be polished as well. That was actually sort of scoured with the Dremel and that little scouring tool that I've done before. And of course the grill cloth. Grill cloth got cleaned in the shower as usual with shaving foam, and after it dried out, it came out quite well. There were a few little spots on there, and the way that I got rid of those spots, and you can't really see it from here except that one there, but the way I got rid of that was actually with some paint. I got some paint that matches the color, and I just went and just did it dot by dot so that most of the spots disappeared, and the result is actually very good. And of course, the side panels were in perfect condition. Nothing to note there. And then the inside was the usual cleaning up of speakers, painting the back. I always paint the back. Makes it look a hell of a lot nicer. But let me show you the speakers in there. Those speakers cleaned up beautifully. I did put some new tape on here because this tape was getting rather grubby. Everything cleaned up, everything put back. The wires got cleaned, the solder connections remade. This got cleaned up as well. It always collects quite a lot of grime on the wires. Everything was looked at very closely and then cleaned up and put back. The screws got polished, and what I do is I use the scrubbing tool on the Dremel and then polish the screw and then spray it with lacquer just to prevent it from oxidizing again. But the result is actually very, very good, as you can probably tell. Now, these speakers are absolutely amazing. Look at this thing. They are amazing. This capacitor here was in perfect condition. I tested it for value and leakage. This obviously doesn't receive high voltage, but it's used to separate the high frequencies from, or rather to remove the low frequencies from the signal that goes to two tweeters. And it all came out very, very well. This bottom cover had a bit of a bump that had been broken on here. So that was repaired. It was pushed back together. And then I gave it a layer of transparent tape over the top, cut the holes out so it looks perfect. You can't tell that it's been repaired at all. And when I talk about painting the back, this is what happens. This normally ends up being sort of a dull gray by the time you get these radios. If you give it a nice, it's a single coat really, of black artist paint. It's water-based acrylic, and it comes out fantastically. One coat, it's a thick paint, and it works out beautifully. It's matte, dries fast, you can wash it off your fingers without too much of a hassle, and it works out very, very well. So other than a few little things that I still find annoying, like a little bit of a light patch on the front top there, and there was a repair to the right at the top there that you can still see was done. Other than those things, I'm very happy with the result. And since I can't get Dave Tipton over to Madeira to come and do this for me, I guess I'm going to have to accept it. Or maybe one day I'll get annoyed and redo the whole thing. But look at the result. It's exactly the way I wanted it. It's matte. And I like it. So now all I need to do is put the radio in here, show you the final result, test it, and start enjoying it. Good, the dream is back. Let's try Longwave first. There's usually not much. I get 2 or 3 stations on here. This is early evening, so not the best time for long and medium wave, but it's good enough to test. That should be BBC Radio 4. I could just get it at this time of day. I must admit I've received it a lot better, but that's got to do with all sorts of other stuff as well. This would be North Africa somewhere. No surprises. Medium wave. Quite busy as usual. And all these are Canary Islands. There's a repeat station that I pick up on various places on the dial, so you'll hear the same reception. That is normal. But it's pretty good. This would be North Africa.
Alberto Zapater es un tío enorme, ha demostrado amor por unos colores, por una tierra y por una afición. Da igual los títulos, la categoría, da igual este deporte. Dice otro oyente.
It is busy, as usual. Very busy.
Es una tontería a la...
And that is the only local station we have, which is a little bit loud. But there we go. So, shortwave. Now shortwave, I notice a problem. This has got no band spread. So tuning exactly to a station is not as easy as it could be. This radio could well have done with some band spread to help with zoning in or zooming in on some of those more obscure radio stations. But it is busy as usual. See what I mean about accuracy? You've got to be very precise.
EPO has an unprecedented capacity to identify and trace without financial flows.
That's pretty good. That is very good.
Señor, el ejército.
I'm getting all these on the mini whip antenna. That is the only antenna I'm using here. And I've said this before, it's one of the best antennas I've ever used. I really am a fan. So as you can see, it's pretty busy all the way across the the band from around 6 megahertz all the way to 17 or 18. I think that's the top end. Now for FM, I get my usual stations here, no surprises. In fact, I get a few that I wasn't expecting. I get some from Canary Islands as well. I was testing it this afternoon, and I was picking up all sorts of different stations and found out it was Canary Islands. FM from Canary Islands. Not bad.
Autostradas do Atlântico, Ascendi, Brisa Autostradas, Brisal, Global Via, Usoponte, Northcote, Norte
Let's try the automatic tuning. Works pretty well. It's a bit slow, as I mentioned when I was doing the restoration of that.
E a verdade, para aqueles que são sinceros.
I always find this quite magical. I'm like a child. And my favorite station at 101.6. And that, my friends, is where I'm going to leave you for now with this project. I have really enjoyed it. It's been one of the biggest projects I've done in terms of size, which is why I gave it that title. It's big and it is quite a radio. So I've already tested the Bluetooth, so I won't do that again. And I really do need to get some medication in me because this COVID is really pissing me off. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you've enjoyed this video and the whole series. And if you have, click like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. And if you want to support the channel directly, you can do so on Patreon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now and stay safe.